Welcome to Talk Design Podcast, the space where creativity meets conversation. I'm Adrian Ramsey, your host, and as someone deeply entrenched in the world of design, I'm thrilled to introduce you to the minds that inspire me, in the hope that they will spark something special within you too. From a design past crafting women's swimwear to pushing the boundaries of performance sportswear, from mountaineering to international yachting, to implementing systematic innovation solutions that transcend boundaries in aerospace industry. My heart remains rooted in architecture, and exploring the emotional tapestry woven by built spaces is my fascination. My journey in design has been what can only be described as a life of design. I want to thank you for lending me your ears. I'm eager to embark on this next episode together. My guests on Talk Design today are Andrea and May, and they, along with Paula Baker-Laporte, are all part of EcoNest, an amazing architectural firm that is based in Oregon, but works well beyond the borders of Oregon, like works all around. Now, their whole ethos is based in building biology, and you'll have heard, if you've listened to my podcast before, you will have heard Paula Baker-Laporte on here, a building biologist. Now, I want to introduce you to the other two parts of this team to talk about architecture and to talk about building biology and to talk about human wealth and healthiness and wellness. And I want to use the word health span. This health span, how long are we going to be healthy for? And I'm going to pose the question, did you know your home's poisoning you? Now, do most people know their home is actually robbing from them instead of nurturing them? We're going to get through all that sometime in this next hour and a bit that we chat. So first of all, ladies, I would like to welcome you to the show.
Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you for having us.
Hey, I'm so excited because this is something that I am really passionate about. I see that we have an industry that barrels down one side of this, thing based just on commerce and economics. I think the industry would like to do better, but the industry doesn't know better. And it's like a little, you lift the corner of the rug and you go, oh no, no. There's lots under there. I've got to keep lifting this rug. I would love to start off with both of your origin stories of how did you why did you become architects? Why did you become interested in building biology? And why did it grab you enough to make you so passionate about it that you keep doing it over and over and over again? Who wants to go first?
Well, I can go first. Mine has been kind of a long journey.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. First of all, Andrea. Oh. Andrea's going first.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
For those of you who aren't on YouTube, this is Andrea. You'll recognize the differences in May's voice and Andrea's voice, and hopefully mine sounds different from theirs. Here we go, Andrea.
Probably. Okay, so yeah, my journey to where I am now feels like it was a lot of little pieces that were disconnected, and then I finally found a way to bring them all together. I've always been interested in how our surroundings affect our emotions and our well-being, and how we move through our spaces was something I was really intrigued by as a kid. My sister and I used to carry a little mirror around the house and then try and navigate the house by the reflected ceiling. And I was just intrigued by, how that felt different than walking through the house without it.
Hold on. Where did you get a game like that from?
I don't know. We were there. It was pre-iPad and video games.
Did you have a TV?
We had to be creative. We did have a black and white TV. I don't know. We were just both very curious kids, and she's now a research scientist, and I'm an architect, and we have always loved just trying things out and seeing, what's different about this or what happens if we do this. And I also had a friend in elementary school. We would separately draw little floor plans for houses all week during
Mhm.
school. And then on the weekends, we'd get together and build these big villages in her basement and create backstories for all the families that lived in our little houses. And so it's always been
So you
kind of
had like
exploring that space.
you had a butcher baker and
Yeah.
a school teacher, and it's so funny
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
say that.
At whole towns.
I learnt to read through reading Louis. When I say learnt to read, kind of helped me learn to read through reading Louis L'Amour novels. And I used
Yeah.
to build Western towns the same
Sure.
way. And I always had, like a saloon, and I always had like a jail and some sort of general store, and like there came the point when I go, oh, Dad, my dad would say to me, "What's that building?" I go, "That's the brothel." And it's
Do you know what that is? Not really.
not really, no idea.
But I know it's important.
Yeah, every town has one, Dad. Yeah,
Yeah, that's fun.
yeah.
But yeah, it was more like instead of playing, we wanted to create our environment that we were going to play in. And so that was kind of my first idea that that's what I wanted to do when I grew up. And in college and my early career, I was kind of focused on sustainability and environmental health, but I didn't make that connection to human health yet. And my first architecture job during college was inspecting public schools for energy efficiency, or, what could be done to improve the indoor climate. So, it was just a little taste of it way
Okay.
back then, a long
Yeah.
time ago. Yeah, and then when I had children, I was really focused on what are they being exposed to, and at that time it was more like, what am I feeding them, what's in their clothing, their flame retardants in their pajamas, and what's on the toys they're playing with and putting in their mouths. And so I had that component, but it didn't really that light bulb of our house and how it's built. I mean, I used zero VOC paints and glues and things like that, but I didn't ever think of all of these things as one piece until I met Paula.
I
And
I would ask the
yeah,
question, who does? Who
right. I mean,
does?
now
It's
it seems so obvious to me. Like, how could I
yeah,
have not? Like, I had all of the pieces, I just didn't
yeah,
have them in one place yet.
yeah.
And when I met Paula, I was actually kind of in between careers. I had when I had first had children, I was working for an engineering firm, and I wanted to do all of it. I wanted to work at this very challenging career, and I wanted to be the ones raising my kids, and I had them at work with me. I spent years, I had a crib in my office. I would sit through conference meetings with a room full of engineers nursing a baby,
Yeah,
and
breastfeeding. Yeah.
right. It was before Zoom, and working from home was even a possibility. And I quickly burned out. It was I was in the office one day, and my second child was about 8 months, and she was sleeping in my office, and I went to get some coffee to try and power through the rest of the day. And all of a sudden, I realized I had spilled my coffee and dropped the cup, and it shattered at my feet. And I had dozed off just standing up. And so I knew that what I was doing was not sustainable for
That
my
was the
personal
point.
health.
That was the
That
point
was my
that you're
breaking
making.
point. Yeah. And so shortly after that, my husband, who was in the military, was being sent for like a 5-month training. And I thought, there's no way I can do this just,
On your own.
working and being
Mhm.
the only parent. And so I took some time off to stay home with kids. And that kind of it was intended to be a year, and then it became a couple. And so the longer I was out of the field, the more impossible it felt to get back into working as an architect. So I started working like part-time at a high school and just trying to find something I could do that was meaningful, but it just was never quite right. And then I was at a local ceremony that was presenting local architects' works and awards, and I saw Paula's work, and I just instantly knew this is it. This is what I want to do. And so a little later, I'd been chatting with another architect, and I told her that, I've been out of the field for a long time. I'd love to get back in, but I don't know if it's possible. And she said, "Oh, I have the person you have to meet." And coincidentally, it was Paula. And so she introduced me to her, and I dove into her books and her newsletters and everything she did. And then she finally hired me, and that was the end of the story. It's like everything, well, it was the beginning of the story.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, all of these, yeah, all of the passions I had had suddenly had like a container that I could really look at it all holistically and put it together.
I got goosebumps when you said, that somebody said, "Oh, I've got somebody you better meet. It's Paula." And
Yeah.
I have a similar sort of story with meeting Paula where I met this, and I don't even know how I met Zara Dakota. And Zara's a building biologist in Australia. And I met Zara through, I don't even know, I don't remember. And went and hung out with her, I think was the first time I met her. And then I think we podcasted. I'm not sure which one came first. I can't remember. And it was like, somebody had lifted a lid for me. And I'm like, oh, you've got to be kidding. And so then I went and, I've spent multiple times with her and gone and done her courses. And, as I said to you before, I was texting Zara this morning when I woke up about, some stuff that I needed and this kind of thing. She introduced me to Paula. She would talk about Paula like she was talking about, the source. And I was like, so who is this Paula woman? And I still didn't even really know anything at that point. And then I spoke to Paula and I went, oh, hold on to something. Hold on. Something there just kind of clicked into place. And I'm like, huh. And then Paula was just recently here in Australia, and that came through Zara and I, and a builder that we know here who really wants to shift the building industry called Dwayne Pierce. And through this podcast, I said, oh, I know Paula. I'll introduce you to her. And from that, it was Matt Reisinger, and I managed to get Matt and Paula together as well at this show that they both came and spoke at. So you've got building scientists with building biologist, and sort of like that's a conversation loop that hasn't really formed in this industry yet either. And
right
at the center of it all, there's these people who live in homes. So
right.
I love that story. It's very similar. It carries the same kind of, and then I just got to spend a week with Paula, which is just mind blowing. It was, it would go down as a week in my life that changed my life. Like it's not.
That's great.
It's not like the week before or the week after. It's like that week is just like, whoa, okay.
Right.
I constantly felt like I couldn't absorb anywhere near enough in the time, or my brain didn't have the capacity, I didn't have the capacity to absorb enough because there was so much. It was like saying going to the source. So May, tell me how you became, crazy, passionate, wildly interested in the building biology part of this, as well as the architecture.
Well, my story of how I became an architect actually starts out rather young. My name is May Yuki, and I'm now licensed in the state of Oregon. And it was around age 9 that I learned about Japan. And that really set me on a journey of learning their culture and language and also design style. The traditional Japanese design style really touched my heart. And really, I learned about this before I even understood fully what being an architect meant. And so that's where I got my start. And in high school, beginning of high school, they offered a drafting class. And I was asking everyone, what is that? What does that mean? What is drafting? And they said, oh, you should go for it. You'd really like it. And I got into it and did the work and did so many assignments that the teacher ran out of assignments for me to do and actually asked me to help the other students learn drafting. So that was probably my first first time actually assisting as a like a teacher's assistant.
Yeah, wow. Wow, that's crazy, isn't it? And but you discovered, tell me why Japanese? What, you know, why wasn't it, I don't know, Italian? Why wasn't it something else? What was the main driving kind of forces to making that thing and then wanting to go deep into it?
I think it was their close affinity to their connection with nature
Hmm.
and how they have designed homes and buildings to really branch out into the landscape and connect with it rather than having the building dominate it and sit on top of it. So their buildings really have a great influence with
Mm.
that. They mesh really well with their landscape. And they also have a beautiful craftsmanship with
Mm.
their wood styles. And
Mm.
it's something that we didn't really have here. It's not something I didn't find here. But when I found it there and their use of natural materials, I just really connected well with it.
Yeah. So I've been lucky enough to spend some time in Japan over the years, and I actually worked as a clothes designer, and I'd go there for clothing stuff. That I would always wanted to be an architect. I just didn't have the ability to get the marks at school to do that, because of being dyslexic. And so I would be fascinated. Clothing's easy. I do the clothing stuff simply, but I'm again fascinated with their craftsmanship and that use of natural materials. And then, as you were saying, the architecture doesn't dominate the landscape. It works with the landscape, and there's a lot of human scale to their architecture. There's a lot of, there's something about it that I'm trying to think of a great sort of analogy of it. It's not like it doesn't own its space, it's of its space. It's like it
Right.
forms with
Right.
it. And maybe their culture's a little like that as well, where it's not about being the loudest and proudest, it's about being with the thing as opposed to over the thing.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. And more so traditional Japanese design.
Mm.
There are some pretty crazy
Oh yeah.
designs out there.
Yeah. But they also seem to have a culture where there's enough people that when they dig into a part of their sorry, I want to use the thing of cars as being an example, or rock and roll or something like that. So in Tokyo, you see all the people who dress and they go and do those kind of rock and roll meetups, and they have 50s kind of style stuff, American 50s stuff, and they do it, but they do it probably better than it was ever done. They're like fanatic about getting it right. It's I used to, as I say, I traveled there quite often, and I was always just fascinated. You go to a ramen restaurant because it does ramen. It doesn't do all the Japanese foods, it does ramen. And its
Mhm.
aim is to be the best ramen restaurant.
Right.
That whole kind of thing, it's like, yeah, I'm hoping to go there this around beginning of next year to go skiing as well. I haven't booked it
Oh,
yet, but yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. But I love the Japanese aesthetics that come across. And then when you take that from there to being healthy, is it true that it's healthy, or is it we just want to believe it is? So
Well, I
when you
think
go to biology side of it.
there is a deep connection with natural materials and health. And the more you choose synthetics, the more chemicals are mixed in. And that's how they develop those materials. If you stay with true hardwoods, true softwoods, true stone, you're automatically avoiding those chemicals that can be inherent in the synthetics that
Mhm.
they come along with. So,
Yeah. So there's an amount of health that's baked in. At the moment we here in Australia, we have this massive, massive revival of I would say it's of using natural stone, sorry, on walls. I'm trying to think of how I want to frame that. So they'll build a cinder block wall and then they'll coat it in stone. And we call it concrete block or cement block in America. I said cinder block for Americans. So the house will be built out of that, be core filled with concrete, whatever. And then they will clad the wall in stone. There's sometimes, not all the time, but the glues that they're using to clad the wall in, you go, oh, really? Oh, okay. Yeah, to get their chemical structures to make it stick, as opposed to it being just, like a lime mortar or something like that. And so you've already got elements in that line of chain of things that have got, I suppose, gassing off abilities and those kinds of things. But then, yeah, what are you adding and what are you adding? And we end up with this thing that looks beautiful, and it's this beautiful, crazy paved stone. But what did we put it on, and what did we put on? When you keep digging backwards, and that's why I said about the Japanese thing, does it just look like it? Because we're all very, I say we all we all are very good at faking the outcome with an external layer, as opposed to what's really the foundation of the outcome. And
right. It's kind of similar to in like Santa Fe. They went through a period of time where buildings were required to look like adobe, not necessarily be adobe. And so then you have all these fake things that aren't necessarily healthy or durable or, energy efficient.
I've got to tell you a story with that. First time in Santa Fe, many, many years ago, driving down the street, and I'm planning a home, and the home that I'm planning, I have this thing about Adobe, and it's for New Zealand, so Adobe's not necessarily the right product for New Zealand, but who cares? Who knows about that? And I see a home being built of, like, I want to say plywood. It wouldn't have been plywood. It would have been strand board of some kind, and being wrapped and being adobe'd on the outside of that. And I thought that was how Adobe was built until I spent probably about 5 days or so around that area. And that's how I thought it was built until I actually went to an Adobe home. But if you'd said to me, if I'd gone back to New Zealand and said, oh, cool, this we're going to do a home that's Adobe, I would have been putting a frame up and then sheeting it and then putting some, I don't know, mud on the outside of it. Seriously. And so that was when it was part of that scheme of you had to build it to look like Adobe. Yeah.
Right.
The health benefits weren't very deep. Go, May.
Another thing that really enticed me about how the Japanese design is some of their religious structures, their temples were just, right, astronomically beautiful and just, they feel amazing to be in. And that's something that Paula really brought into her work very well, is creating the home as a sanctuary and bringing in that feel that is really very kind of challenging to recreate with anything but beautiful natural materials and that, gorgeous structure and proportion and really great design.
And it brings in a feeling of groundedness, doesn't it? So I can, every time I've ever been to Japan, I'll have meetings and, restaurants and, whatever, all those things, go to the shops, whatever. I would always go to temples. And it wasn't because of any religious thing. It was because of the feel that you're just drawn into those spaces. And even like maybe part of that's Eastern philosophy, maybe. I was going to say, even now when I go to, say, like, different towns, if there's a Japanese garden, sometimes with Chinese gardens as well, not as driven by that, but if there is a Japanese garden that I can go and visit, I will always. I've only just put that link together in my head, but every time I go to Japan, it'd be like, no, I can't do anything this morning, or I can't do anything this afternoon because I'm going to the temples. And when they'd say to me, oh, where do you want to, what do you want to see? The people who would host me, I'd go, oh, what really cool temples are there to go and see? And they'd be like, oh, there's this one. And also they're very proud of them, oh, there's this.
Right.
but that groundedness feeling and connected, I don't know. That makes me want to go, okay, so what kind of sacred geometry did they use? What are they doing? What are those guys up
And
to?
just the history, the soul that is in that building, because it's not something that's, 15 years old. It's hundreds of years. And, just what those buildings hear and see and absorb and hold on to.
That little point there, so this is going to take us slightly off track, but I'm all good for that.
No worries.
When we talk about the soul of a building, and like I have this thing, we're in Australia, got to design and build a home that's got to last 50 years. Well, that's a crime, because of the cost of it, and it's 50 years, and it should be that it should have to last 500 years. And I get that it's got to be renovated. I get that it's got to have additions to it. We change the way we live, but the core values and the core of the building should be worthy of lasting hundreds of years. And then what happens is, given that the building's built in the right place, on the land, where the energy's correct, and where everything converges and comes together, given the building is sited well for its environment and on the piece of land and for the magnetic forces on that land, then the soul of that building is it starts to nurture, and it starts to layer, and it starts to layer, and it starts to layer, and it holds all that energy and memory, because it's a living organism as well. It holds that for the next generation and the next generation and so on. And I think that that's something that's so lost in modern building, that we're not trying to, well, we might be, but for the industry isn't trying to do things that last. They're going for not cheap and disposable, expensive and disposable. We need a new kitchen because quick. Yeah, because labor costs are so high, but we need a new kitchen. Why? Oh, because the trend has changed, but our kitchen works fine. Yeah. Oh yes, but it's not up to date. It's not this, it's not that. It's like, oh, I need a new shirt because the colors have changed for the season, like I get that. You probably need a long sleeve one or a short sleeve one, depending on the season. The other's just about vanity and fashion. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm saying that's part of what we do. It is just how do we not do that with the core of a building, so that it gets soul, that the most revered thing is the building to own is the one everybody wants, is the one that's hundreds of years old, not the one that's shiny and new.
And how do we design homes that have that kind of resiliency and flexibility, so that, things are going to change, families change, climate's changing, all our needs are changing, energy. So how do we build with this natural core that's going to be the soul of the building? And yes, you can update things that you want, but how do you make that core of the building something that lasts forever? And what it is we look back to what was built before the Industrial Revolution, and how long did that stand and last? And then we started building cheap and easy, and not cheap as in inexpensive, but cheap as in cheaply built structures that go up quickly, and they're plastic and they come down quickly, and they're just but a blip in their life of a building. Whereas, before that, when we were building with natural materials, these buildings last forever. So it's almost kind of like we tried something for a little bit and we're realizing, oh, wait, no, we had it right before that. Let's go back. And so I feel like that's where we're headed. We're just not there yet.
I'm with you. I think there's a piece of it that's headed there, but we're going to do it in a new way, because we can't do it necessarily in the old way, because the old way doesn't meet the economics of the new way. And so we've got to find a new way with the economics as well. So I'm going to throw a curveball to this one, which is, I believe that being able to modularize homes is going to be a huge part of the future, based on a couple of things. One is that if we can modularize and build a home off-site, we can control the environment we build it in, and we can reduce the usually we can reduce the footprint of the sustainability issues because we've got all our trades coming to one place to do the things. We can work 24/7 if we want. We can use robotics easier, and we can better with those robotics. We can create not just the robotics, but with our planning abilities, we can create better usage of material. So we can use less and get more out of it. We don't have to cut down as many trees or grow as many trees and all the rest. And we've got more of a chance of solving our Western world's housing crisis of not enough homes in the world, in our Western world. Let's be clear about that. In our privileged Western world, we don't have enough houses for all of us to live in. So I look at that and I go, how does a company like EcoNest and also as you guys consult as building on the building biology to other architects, how does that sort of thing fit together? And I also believe that we will see more compounded living because of the cost of housing. So I think cost of a house used to cost about 4 years of wages. Now it costs about 12 years of wages, somewhere in that sort of scheme. And we're seeing, with infill properties, with ADUs, so granny flats, whatever you want to call them, ADUs and infill into what were larger properties now being bought in. There's more of a trend to have multi-generational families back in there. And part of that is affordability as well. It's, so grandparents, parents, and maybe kids could be living in the same compound. We've got different living styles and we're demanding different things. But I see that modular has a huge argument to win in this structural thing. But I go, modular also gives maybe, I'm about to learn something hopefully here, maybe gives the ability to do so much better with building biology. Am I right? Am I wrong? I don't know.
It's really interesting that you brought that up. Two things came to my mind when you started speaking about modular. We've actually consulted with a few companies, individuals who are focused on some small designs and some larger designs as well that are formed in the factory that have those controlled environments where it's kept clean, much cleaner than can be done on a building site, and then can be delivered and assembled quickly on site. And those companies that came to mind is Unity Homes with Bensonwood. We've worked with them, and also Clever Tiny Homes and the SIRS Project. Have you heard of either of them?
No, but I'm going to get all their details. You're going to introduce me. Yeah, I want to talk to these people as well. This whole thing. I think, one of the things that I think that's going to drive modular as well, that people, maybe are aware of, but not so aware of, is I come and build my house next door to your home. And as I'm building it, I shower you in construction, dust, noise, pollution, all these things. And so far, I don't know of anybody being sued for having a house built next door to them, and them being polluting the environment that the person's living in next door. But when you go, oh, well, I've got, say a minimum of 3 neighbors, call it 5, by the time we go, oh, one there, one there, one there, one there around me. If I've got 5 neighbors that I have a high polluting fact on or outcome, at what point does somebody go, well, my health got suffered because you built whatever next door to me and you weren't careful about it? If it's modular, that all happens in a factory, and factories really, I say in a factory, in a controlled environment. It's very easy to regulate a controlled environment for all the people who come into that controlled environment and work in that controlled environment. The air quality, all those things become something that is able to be worked with really easily. I say really easily. We've got standards all around the world for this, for factories and stuff like that have been built over so many years. So we're taking care of, we've got the ability to take better care of people. If I was a builder, would I want to build modular? No, I want a stick frame in my home over there outside in the woods. That's what I want to do. But I get that maybe is not even a luxury. Maybe it's a thing that will become a thing of the past as we go. Maybe it'll just be a luxury item.
Well, another thing to consider about modular building too is how you're putting things together so that they can be taken apart and changed to, grow with a family or change with a family because your needs change.
Mm-hmm.
And, should your home have to change every time you do, but finding ways to put things together so that if you want to change something, you're not creating a lot of garbage. You're reusing.
Well, sustainably reusing. Yeah.
Yeah, we did work with someone, an architect who built his own home, and it was a light straw clay home, but he did, instead of stuffing the walls on site, which was, kind of the more common way to do it, he built panels off site in a controlled environment where they were able to dry and, they could test them and make sure that they were at the right moisture content and then bring them to the site and assemble them.
We have a company in Australia, and I'm not going to say the name of it because I'll get it wrong. But if anybody wants to reach out, I will find out the name properly and all the rest. But it's a woman's company, so it has only a woman that work in it, and they make a straw panel, sustainably, environmentally done straw panel that you can use in your homes anywhere in Australia, and it's compressed and whatever needs to happen to it as a building material. Yeah. And I won't use any names as sort of advertising them, but there's another one that we already spec in. But that one, I just read about it just recently, and it's a group of women who go, okay, this is our industry. We're going to create this industry, or who have done it, not going to, they're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then the healthiness as building biology, and as building biology gets understood, and then this is getting back to the building science of it as well, is how do we put this thing together so that it does all the things that our home needs to perform to, as well as how do we add the biology to it so that it is a nurtured, healthy structure. I remember talking to Paula, and she was saying to me, I can't remember which podcaster she went on some podcast, and she said book sales went crazy. And it was because of all the biohackers, the people who wanted a wellness span. And she said, I finally went, oh, maybe I'm actually going to earn some money from this book. That was her thing. And she said, but this one thing of the revelation that this whole audience got of the fact that their home wasn't helping them live longer. And you said it before, Andrea, May, you've said it as well. It's like, how do I get this thing that actually wraps its arms around me and lifts me up, not wraps its arms around me and sinks me,
Right. That's the goal always. And the marriage of building biology and building science is something May and I are both really passionate about, and because it's not one or the other. You can build naturally and healthy and have this super performing home. And so learning from like Matt and other building scientists out there has been really eye-opening for us. And it's really exciting, the things that you can do. So we're definitely looking forward to what the future is going to be bringing, and how do we bring all this into one cohesive, nurturing home.
Well, absolutely. And everybody can go and get Paula's book, Prescription for a Healthy House. And I actually have John, her co-author, coming on the pod. He's on the podcast. We just haven't released it yet as well.
Good.
But it's going to be out there as well. So, but with these points of it, take me through something that is like, what if you had to label 5 key points that people should be asking themselves about the home, either they're about to. Let's just go, first of all, 5 key points about the home they're about to have designed, that if these questions aren't answered, they're not in the right space. Can you do that?
Yeah. Do you want to start, May, or do you want me to?
I would start with checking your indoor air quality as one of the fundamental ways you can really improve your environment in a holistic way and rather quickly as a really good place to start. I would put that really high on the list.
So in the design phase, if I said indoor air quality, you'd be talking about how are you going to control it if we were in design? And do you test the outdoor air quality of the site?
Starting with where your site is located is exactly where you want to start. Starting anywhere that there's a lot of environmental pollution, it's going to be a bigger challenge to have a safer indoor environment. Being out a little further from the heart of the city sometimes, having a little bit of land and space around you so that your neighbor's dryer scent doesn't come through your windows is really ideal. So that's a starting point.
Who's ever thought of that the dryer that somebody's drying their clothes in next door, the scented rag that they put in there so that they smell like, I don't know, lavender as they walk down the street is actually affecting you when you live in your house next door if you can smell it.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, I don't consider myself particularly sensitive, although everybody in my family would say that I'm the one who is sensitive. But it's, I can open my window and say, oh, Joan's doing her laundry today because I can smell it. And it's irritating, when you can walk down the street and know who's doing laundry and exactly what they're using. We can pinpoint that.
And that it's got a chemical.
Yeah.
That you're getting the chemical, you're taking it in at that point.
Yeah. And that's a little harder that's a little harder to control, when you live in an urban area. But things like, factories or, near farms or golf courses that use pesticides, making early choices.
I'm pretty sensitive to scents myself. And so I mentioned that as there are some really great air filters out there, standalone units. They don't have to be throughout, it doesn't have to be throughout the home in HVAC systems. It can be standalone and it can instantly provide cleaner air. And I really feel like that's a huge area of our health, of where toxins can get into our bodies is through our breath, through our air. And so that's why it becomes the main recommendation.
Yeah, go. Give me number 2, because number 1, we could do a podcast on number 1. Just on number 1.
We totally
easy.
Could.
Yeah. And maybe we
should. Can I give number 2
Go for it.
And with a photo?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. You share a photo. So if you're not on YouTube and you want to come and see this photo, we'll describe it. But this is going to be on YouTube as well, so you can come and actually see this photo. And Andrea's going to explain the photo to us as well. Number 2, what's number 2?
Number 2, and I don't know, it might be 2, 3, and 4, but maybe we'll include them all in 2 because there's too many to separate it. But this is a photo of just a small home that we did. But what's important about this photo is this home has a good hat, which means a durable, simple roof that's going to keep the weather out. And so it's got a large overhang.
Yeah,
so
it's got a gabled roof. It's got a gabled roof. And what's the degree angle on the gabled roof? Because I know there's more to this than just, So
I don't remember.
Greater than 4 and 12.
Okay.
Yeah, right. I'd say it's about 36 degrees, just looking at it. It would be pitched steep enough for tiling. If you wanted a tiled roof on it.
Right.
I don't know what it's got, but yeah.
So every house that we design or that we consult on, we recommend it's got to have a good hat. And then also this one's got a good pair of boots. That means this bottom layer here, it's up. We've got a slab on grade and it's raised up above grade a bit.
How far?
Not far. Do you remember this particular?
I don't
maybe
need you to be
6 inches.
I would
12 inches.
Yeah, I'd say it's about a foot. Yeah.
Yeah, and this bottom is a stone wainscoting that's going to protect from any splash up from the ground, and then it's got a good coat. This is a lime stucco that's breathable, so it's not going to trap moisture, but it's very durable. And it's very beautiful, I think.
Great. I'm making notes here. So with it, the points that you make, and look, interesting spending time with Matt Risinger, who I have the privilege of doing that with as well. He's like, if you don't have a roof on this thing, or if the roof isn't going to have an overhang and keep it dry, if it's not going to do these things, it's not going to perform. And we're going to get water in there, and that's going to give us a problem. And he actually, I think it was Paula did it. The really interesting wind patterns. No, it might have been Matt. It might have been Matt at this conference. They had a gabled roof like this. And so with the gabled roof, they showed what happens with the wind patterns as the air hits that gabled roof and where the water hits the side of the building at that point, and how the pitch, as opposed to, say, a skillion roof, how the pitch, and not just the pitch, but the overhang, that's the size of the brim on the hat, how that overhang.
Nice big cowboy hat.
Yeah, well, I'm sponsored by Stetson, so
there you go.
Yeah, so Stetson, I'm very privileged to be sponsored by them. But with that, yeah, like, what's your hat? And then I love the analogy, taking it down to the boots. So you've got a sole on your boots. These aren't like, moccasins for wearing inside, or, that this is actually a sole. It lifts you up off the ground and gives you the protection. And then that first part is a protective surface, so that it's not actually your exterior cladding necessarily touching the ground. And then with your exterior cladding, making sure that it's actually going to be part of the first layer of the eco structure of the home that's going to allow it to acclimatize. I'm going to use, you can put that in better words for me.
Well, it's, I mean, you can do everything in the world to use healthy materials that aren't going to off gas and be toxic in your home. But if you don't take the care first to make sure that it's going to keep water out, and fresh air is great, but we want to control how that fresh air comes into the house. We don't want it seeping through leaks or cracks, and mold. If you build a healthy house and you put all your focus on using healthy materials, but you don't focus on making it resilient and durable against water, then you've just brought one of the biggest toxins you can, into your home.
With mold. Yeah, okay. That part, obviously, the whole podcast with John is on mold.
Right. Yeah, he's our mold guru.
Oh, isn't he? I think that goes so deep. And as you say, though, if you can sort those first few things out, then you've got an opportunity in the other way. I had recently on the podcast the guys from Firewall, Michael and Joss, and also had Mercedes, who works with them on another podcast as well, talking about Firewall. And Firewall, for everybody listening, is insulated structural rammed earth. And these guys are the leading people in the world. And we had a little laugh when we did our podcast, because I said something about Paula, and they pulled up Paula's book and went, "Oh, that's Paula." Yeah. Sort of like
back here.
Oh, back to the source. Yeah. So with that piece, they were saying to me the humidity levels that rammed earth works with, that mold will not grow in their structures on the rammed earth, because of the humidity levels. Where I live, I had this conversation with Paula when we were here. We don't want to close our doors and windows. It's like Florida, man. Like, it's like we can live with it open pretty much all year round. We do live with it open pretty much all year round. I don't even have air conditioning in my home. Well, I'm a bit unusual. Most people would. I have no mechanical ventilation system that compresses or cools or dries the air. And that does have a few challenges. It does mean that there's a few challenges. But in general, I want to live as close to nature as I can. And this climate is this is the variance. It's so small in variance that, well, why wouldn't I live like that? It's put a sweater on, take a sweater off. It's put long pants on, take long pants off. It's like put a jacket on, take a jacket off, and we light a fire. We burn hardwood in the fireplace, and that's our heating for maybe 2 months of the year. And if it goes any longer, it's just about the community and being romantic, having a space that pulls you in.
Sure. Yeah.
But that's how we live here. And as Paula said, well, you've got this humid environment, you've got a lot of nature, so there's a reasonable level of dust. So you will get mold. You can't not get mold, but it doesn't have to control everything. And then it comes down to your design of how you design it for the airflow and everything else. That because you're not going to passive house this house or a house like this. And most of the houses that we design, passive house wouldn't be suitable for, because that's not how the people live. People are living with it wide open. And so then when we go back to air quality, mate, that's why I said to you with air quality, do you test the air quality before you actually, not necessarily choose the site, but that would be a good place to start. I know when I've got clients choosing sites, I go, okay, let's look at the roads. Let's look at what we've got. Heavy metals will drop away as we go more electric. So we should see a change in that. But in general, what are our pollutants? So did we get 3 and 4 out of boots and coat, or have we got more?
Oh, we definitely have more. I think just to comment on a point you made about like your home and opening windows and we build in a lot of different climates and do rely on mechanical ventilation and heating and cooling. But our hope and our goal, I guess I should say not hope, because it's much stronger
more than hopium. Yeah, it's not the hopium.
Yeah, we're not just crossing our fingers, but our goal is always to build a home where, and this should be true of all of our buildings, but where the mechanical systems enhance the way you live. It's not a life support, and a lot of that is passive, like these big overhangs. They don't just protect from water. If you've got a large overhang on the south side, then you're going to block some of that high summer sun, but you're going to pull in the winter sun that you want. And so or I guess it's reverse where you are, but there are a lot of ways to situate your home on the site and to design it so that all of your mechanicals are just enhancement when needed. But you shouldn't, when that all goes away, you should be able to survive in your home, when the power goes out, when there's an interruption in service. We want homes to be a safe place to live, regardless of whether they've got connection or not.
Yeah, you're singing to the choir. I'm of that. How do we design it first for its environment, and then how do we I often say, there's kind of 3 big elements, and whilst the client's the patron of these elements, the first one is the siting and the environment that it's around it. The next one's the regulations that we're going to be controlled by, that we don't want to spend your money fighting. And lastly, and most importantly, is the client and what do they want from their home. But without the other first 2 put into place, doesn't matter what the client wants from their home.
Right.
It could be a disaster if we haven't considered the other 2 first. And siting to me is number 1. And I do a whole program with some other architects called Land Whispering, and we go into all kinds of different things with siting a home. And then once we got the siting right and we're responding to the environment, then how do you go from that to actually within the regulations? And sometimes we'll argue those, but
sure.
For the most part, why spend money on something that there's probably a reasonable reason for why those regulations exist, and isn't that designed to work, to design within the boundaries, to design within what it is? And I do get, we will push those around sometimes. And then lastly, how does the client want to live, and how do they want to feel in their home? And we do a thing called the emotional floor plan to build that piece out. But the emotional floor plan actually starts back with standing on the block, standing on the site.
Yeah.
They don't see that, but that's where it really starts.
Well, and that's so important too, because what, might be my priority for living in my home is different than others. I was consulting on a project once, and they had no operable windows, or very few. And I said, I commented that this really needed to change, and they said, no, we don't. We've lived in this spot for so many years. We don't open our windows, period. And maybe it was due to pollution outside or weather conditions outside. And, it sounds, even in it was a giant house, sounds very claustrophobic to me. If I can't open a window, I feel like I'm trapped. But that's me. So how do we build this healthy home for someone who doesn't bring in fresh air or can't bring in fresh air? Sometimes people have no choice but to live in a place where the outdoor air is not necessarily cleaner than our indoor air. It usually is, but if you're in a place, or if you're in a short-term experience, like with wildfires, sometimes we have to just close everything up here, and we still need to be making sure that we've got air circulation. So how do we plan for those kind of contingencies and keep it healthy and as natural as possible?
May, do you feel trapped if you don't have an open window, not being able to open a window?
I would say so. I've typically lived with open windows, I think, my whole life. It's very comfortable to have a passive breeze coming through, as well as beautiful natural sunlight in the morning to wake up with, and to say good evening to the setting sun at the end of the day.
Oh, it sounds perfect, doesn't it? I like that.
Yeah.
Saying good evening to the setting sun. It's sort of poetry. I love that thing of, if we're privileged enough to wake up with the morning sun, that is privilege. And I mean, everybody can wake up with sunlight, or sun, yes, I'm going to call it daylight, not necessarily sunlight. If we can get sunlight and daylight, that's awesome. And then, take that to the next step, where being able to feel those breezes and be engaged by nature, and just gently engaged by nature like that. And then also, there's some magic in being able to see the sunset. So having some point of view of watching that sun go down is really beautiful as well. Yeah, that gets you into sighting, doesn't it? How do you sight something so that you get all those abilities? And like not have to smell the neighbor's scented dryer or chemical storm that they're creating next door. So if we've got, what did we get to there? We've got our sighting, our air quality, at the way our house is shaped and built, and then how does it feel? But then give me some more that fill out my list.
I think another important thing to consider early on is size. Oftentimes we have clients who their initial thought is they need a much bigger footprint than they do, and we start talking, and one thing that we really focus on is, how do we design in a way that's efficient, so we don't have wasted space, so that you can build in a much smaller footprint but not feel cramped. And Paula had a great story that she always told, that she had some clients come in, and she had her office in one building and her home on the same site. So she had some clients come in and they were thinking they needed about 3,000 square feet for a home. And so she took them next door and walked them through her home. And they said, yeah, exactly like this. This is perfect. And it was about half that size. And so it's really, you can make it feel spacious by defining the spaces and what goes on where, and what happens in those in-between spaces, the kind of the liminal spaces of the home. So I think size is always a big discussion, and certainly if somebody wants a bigger house, that we want to work with them to give them what they need, but helping them really understand what that feels like and how their home functions can be a big enlightenment for a homeowner.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's actually one of the biggest values that architecture brings, and architectural design brings. Because of my background and upbringing, and then all the things that I do that are design related, I spend a lot of time homes that I haven't designed, that, not that I should design every home by any means, but I'd spend a lot of time in homes that I haven't, had any influence over at all. And I get to observe these homes, look at them and understand them. And that will be sometimes designed by a builder, sometimes designed by mum and dad and the draftsman, sometimes designed by a building designer or by an architect. And one of the things that I see the most is big is beautiful, is this construct that big is beautiful. And without taking it away from general contractors or builders, the place I see that the most is with builders and general contractors who design homes. They go big rather than function, and they end up with not necessarily terrible homes or terrible spaces that they're doing, but just overbuilt would be my best description of it. And often when I'm speaking, not often, always when I'm speaking, I say, I don't believe architects and designers should be builders, and I don't believe builders should be architects or designers, because you both bring completely separate things. Now, can some people bring those things well? Yep, there's a few. But in general, not so many. And I certainly know quite a few architects that will do design and construct as well, but they're not necessarily the builder. They are the contracting that is going to control the building, but they're not actually physically building it. Yeah, so that kind of thing, I see the overbuilt space as being a big problem. That's actually one of my, putting a sort of loop on it, is one of my things around modular. You can build modular as big as you want and as tall as you want. There's nothing to stop you doing that with modular. The only thing that the restriction for modular is road size, transport size, and weight. Those are your restrictions. And if you're going to function within those things, then great. Like that will actually start not to restrict your overall size, but it will actually get you to think very heavily around your room compartment sizes and how they come together. And that point you made earlier about having worked with people that do these, your home in 20 years or 30 years, you can go, oh, we want to do this. So we know we can unlock this piece and put this piece on. I used to do some work with a developer, and she would buy sites and she would never build slab on ground. She would always build raised off the ground, so on stumps. And at all the truckable size points, she would have her building so that it could be deconstructed. So this piece could be built on site deliberately, like not necessarily a stick frame, but, trusses and all those would arrive. But then she'd have two bearers, two sets of stumps right there, and a roofline piece that it could be separated at. So she could take this piece and truck it. Very clever developer. She would go, okay, so now that piece of land is too valuable for this size of home. So maybe in 10, 12 years, I will take this size, I might have 4 on there. I will take these 4 off and I will truck them to a new site that further out of town, put them back together. And now I've got my structure for there. And now I'll take this site here and I will do another development on it, which might only be 2 places, but again, built with the same thing so that it can be removed and taken away again as that land that becomes more valuable as its proximity to whatever it was valuable for in the first place grows. She's got this stepping program of moving that out, but never sustainability wise, just literally unbolting and shifting and rebolting. It always fascinated me, and I kind of go, hold on, there's some thinking in that. That gets a bit harder when you do a slab on ground because you're not designing to pick it up. And if you're doing rammed earth, it certainly doesn't work. So then you've got to be more thoughtful about your design and go, we've got 200-year design here or a 500-year design. So I think size is a huge one. I really, really do. I think size, don't overbuild, but do certainly build for what you need and certainly build for
Right.
more than you need if
Right.
you want to, but better design rather than bigger house is actually what Paula was demonstrating with that person. You know, it's half that size, but it's better design.
Yeah.
So you guys consult to other architects, and you do that where?
You mean location wise or
Location, yeah.
all over the world? Mostly in the United States, but we've consulted on projects in Costa Rica and Italy. We have consulted on a yacht. The family wanted to build a healthy yacht, which was a really fun experience because it's very different than building a house. So, yeah, we've consulted on all over the United States and Canada. Am I missing any? Yeah.
Got to get you consulting in Australia and New Zealand. So,
Yeah.
in being consultants, how much do you learn about architecture working with other architects?
Oh, so much. I think one of the greatest gifts we have in being consultants is seeing what other architects are doing and how. And so, because, they send us their full drawing set and we look at their details and then, hashing those details out with the builder. It's just when you've got three different people who are looking at that detail with a different perspective. We're learning so much. We've just built great relationships with other architects and with builders. It's such a collaborative thing to go into this with the goal is how do we make this as healthy as possible for our client, and a lot of times it will just be a Zoom meeting with me and an architect and a builder, and we're like, okay, we've got this problem, how are we going to solve this problem for this particular client in this climate? It's just it's really enlightening and exciting.
So I can imagine and my journey of design is a constant education. And if I can get hold of anybody's plan set to have a look, I'm always keen. Good house, bad house, don't care. Always keen to see what was done and how it was done, and what I go, oh, okay, yeah, right. Why would that? And I have this thing, so I do this series for the AIA Austin for the Open Homes Tour, and talk to all the different architects. The first thing I ask is, what was the brief? What was the brief? Because the brief, it's not your dream home, it's somebody else's dream home. And so what was the brief? And, the crazy things we see when we see other people's plan sets, or we go into houses and we go, why would you do that? But there's a story and there's an outcome to the story that's been put into the built structure. And whilst we might never do it for ourselves, we get to experience it through seeing other people's work or doing that work ourselves. I imagine it makes you much better architects yourself.
I feel like it does. How could it not? It's like having mentors or, working collaboratively with hundreds of different people. So you're constantly learning how other people either design or build, or even how they just communicate that with a client. That's one thing I've learned a lot from other team members is, how they're portraying this, how they're communicating it, getting the point across.
I love that. I think that, yeah, huge. It brings up a really interesting point. So in the process of designing something, whether it's you or whether you're consulting, whether it's, you guys as EcoNest designing for somebody, or whether you're consulting on somebody else's design, when does the team, or who's in the team and who forms the team as such for the whole project? So I'm talking, we've got client, design, build, the construction piece of it. At what point do all these, who gets put in the soup when? When do you put these people in the soup to get success?
Sure. It varies. I mean, there's definitely some flexibility. Like I've said, sometimes we have clients who come to us, and a lot of times they'll call and they'll just say, okay, I have no idea where to start, but I heard of you guys. maybe you can tell me how this process works. And then, so then we kind of get an idea of where they're building, what they need. Would they be better served with a local architect, or is this something that, we feel that we could very successfully take on? There's a lot of factors that goes into that discussion also. And so then we kind of start, with them. And if they don't have an architect in mind yet, then we give them some ideas on how do you choose an architect that is going to be, successful in this realm of healthy home. And the biggest key there is just somebody who's interested and wants to work as a team. That's really the biggest factor that determines whether it's going to be a successful project. Some people already have a builder in mind, and some people, they don't bring a builder on until we've got this, the design and then the healthy home aspect figured out. So it varies a lot, but it usually starts with someone calling us because they need a healthy place to heal, and they're just not sure what to do next.
So just pause right on that. They need a healthy place to heal. So my kids went to a Montessori school.
So did mine. Yay.
And with that, I remember talking to the principal at one point and going that, everybody whose kid had a learning disability of some kind, they'd say, oh, we'll send them to Montessori. And she goes, we're not that kind of school. Yes, of course, our system works for them, but we're not a school of people who are broken or perceived broken by the community,
right,
or an outlier. That's not what our school is. We're a school that's a mainstream school. So then you just said, somebody who's looking to heal. And so what's the benefit? Why do they need to heal first? And what's the benefit of that this brings? And is prevention better than cure? Is going to be my roundup on that. So I'm giving you the end before this.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, give me this thing on who is this person or these people, and then what happens from there, because they're obviously in need. And my friend Zara Dakota, she came to building biology needing to heal. She just took a little further and decided that she could help a whole lot of other people with their knowledge. Yeah.
I think that's really, that's a common story we hear when Paula and I teach this class. The first thing we do is people go around and just talk about why they're there, what they want to learn.
It's like Alcoholics Anonymous.
Kind of. But the bulk is people who wanted to help themselves and then realized they could help others. Which there's, definitely a beauty in that. I would say the bulk of our clients who are seeking out a healthy home at this moment, and it kind of changes and evolves, but people who were exposed to toxic mold and became sick and then became reactive to chemicals and electromagnetics. And so it's sort of this, once you become sick, then you start to react to everything, and you need a safe place to live. Yeah.
So this is a real effect of, like, so say you're mold exposed and you get this toxic mold, then the likelihood of the other things that are in your environment to start, kicking your legs out from underneath you goes up and up and up. So if mold's like
that seems
catalyst,
to be the case. Yeah.
Yeah,
usually.
wow.
I mean, there have been, we've had clients that were exposed to like Paula's, chemical sensitivities came from exposure to toxic chemicals. So, it varies, but it feels like mold is the most common. But the category of clientele that we get that just come to us because they heard about healthy homes and think that's the right way to build is growing. And I find that really exciting because as much as, I want to be here to help whoever I can help and whoever needs that help. But knowing that people are starting to see this as just the right way to do something is really exciting.
Oh, yeah.
So usually one of my first questions when somebody calls is, why do you need a healthy home? And usually it's, I was exposed to mold and I became ill, or, that type of story. But more and more often I'm getting, like a confused look, and they'll say, "What are you talking about? Isn't this the right way to do it?" And I say, "Yes, of course, it's definitely the right way to do it." But it's not always our experience that people are doing it because that's the way they want to do it.
They're taking action to heal, as you said.
Right. A lot of it's people with young children or wanting to start a family. I know, they suddenly realize, oh, this world is a scary place. What can I do to protect my children? And so, then they start researching and finding Paula's book and all the podcasts and like, oh, okay, I didn't realize this was a good way to do things. But it's really rewarding to know that it's not just a place of panic or fear. It's also a place of we can do better, so let's do better.
So did you come to it, Andrew, did you come to it from a health perspective? It was driven to you by the health perspective. Was that your journey into it?
Sort of. Mine started more like environmental health. And then when I had kids, I wanted to make sure everything around them was as good as it could be. And so just little bits and pieces, I started to realize, there's a good way to do this.
And May, for you?
I actually have a firsthand experience of falling pretty ill from my environment when I was in high school. And it was the change in the environment when I had a chance to finally go off to college that I started to get better. And so
College made you better. College made you better.
College made me. I wholeheartedly believe that your environment has that impact on your health and can help heal you. And Paula also has that firsthand experience, obviously. Yes.
It seems a shame. It seems wonderful. And it also seems like such a lost opportunity that people are here for cure rather than prevention. And as you said, the prevention side is growing rapidly. And I look at the thing of just take the AIA and their responsibility in growing awareness for people for the right things and how they can offer as a body, how they can offer better for the overall industry, which is the public that are going to experience it. We're talking about homes. Let's not, but we could talk about offices. We could talk about that.
Schools.
Yeah, and schools. And those spaces are actually government regulated or state regulated. And we can hope that there's a standard or a level of some sort of standard in there around air quality and around these things. We know it's shocking, but let's just go, we can hope that there's some sort of thing in there. And then taking the responsibility for it in your home is kind of like, oh, well, yeah, it's kind of like there's nobody, I suppose, regulating it. And I don't want to live in this. And I don't want to live anywhere where everything's regulated. I want to live with the least amount of regulation and the most amount of common sense. And that requires the best level of education and the best. It's not about marketing it for the sake of, it's not greenwashing. It's really washing. Yeah. So the healing part of it, when somebody's needs to be healed, the first step, I imagine, is taking them out of one environment and putting them in another.
It can be, yeah. Especially if there's mold or dampness or, a lot of chemicals off-gassing.
We were talking earlier before we started recording about the fact of, when people who have these high sensitivities or they've got permanent damage that is maintaining their high levels of sensitivities or giving them, more issues. Where do they go when how do they find a place? How do they get safe? How do they get their first point of healing? Because they probably can't do it in the environment they're in. And we already went through that sort of thing around the air quality, the hat, the boots, all those pieces, the coat, and that part of it. But I know from having Paula here, just her sensitivities with the chemical things and where she stays. And we were talking before about, okay, well, where do you go and stay? where's the standard? Where's the thing that, you can kind of trust, that you will be better in this environment than that environment if you're traveling, but not more so than traveling, because traveling you can move on pretty quick. It's
Sure.
where are you housing? Where are you living?
Right. It can be a big problem. I mean, we've had, especially if you're on a budget, we've had clients who had to move out of their homes and into cars or hotels, which is rarely ideal, just to get out of that specific environment. Others have the privilege of being able to fix some things in their existing home to just make it enough better that they can survive while they're building new, or while they're taking on a whole renovation. But it can be a very tricky thing because very few people have no budget. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like everybody's got some kind of limit.
Mhm.
And for some, that can be really prohibitive. A lot of times, if there's space available on a site, we recommend that, and people like to do this, to build just a really small ADU that they can sleep in, or that can later be a guest house, but that gives them something quick to get into. The other advantage to that is you can test out some materials and see what works for you and what's best. But
And
yeah,
they could do that with a tiny
it's
home as well. That could be
a
trailered
tiny
away.
home.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's May mentioned earlier, I'm not sure if we were recording at that point or not, but the Sears project,
We were. Tell me about it.
right, it's still in development, so unfortunately it's not somebody can move in right now, but it's a project where they're working with the clever tiny homes manufacturers to build a small temporary village, essentially. Like it's being built at a campground, and they will have a series of tiny homes that can be rented to people who need an emergency place to escape a living situation. And it's, I think if you go to their website, I think it's just searsproject.com.
How do you spell that?
CIRS.
I'm not going there, but you
Oh,
can open it and put it on the screen if you want.
okay. It might take me a minute to find it.
Okay.
But anyway, it's going to be one of a kind, a revolutionary thing where people can go and heal at an affordable option.
I think another interesting thing with this is we've got, like, probably accelerated heavily by the pandemic. We've got this massive growth in wellness. Wellness is, it's a key phrase. It's a trend. It's all these things right now. But that goes from, like hydrotherapies and cold plunges and hyperbolic chambers and exercise, tree hugging, whatever. There's this big, huge gambit of wellness awareness. And I often say to people, so, we're designing homes with wellness centers in them. They've got saunas and cold plunges, and they've got, gym spaces, and they've got like steam showers, those kinds of things. And whilst I absolutely love, love, love doing it, don't leave that part of the house to go to another part that's not good for you.
Right.
Like, let's look at it, but more holistically.
Exactly.
As in, we've got all these spaces, and the one that you're actually going to lie in and rejuvenate in is actually going to be the one where you sleep in, and that's going to be hopefully a minimum of 7 hours. So how do we make those ones mission critical?
Right. That is always our top recommendation when people say, I can't afford to move, I can't afford to build right now. Where do I start? And it's always going to be the bedroom. I mean, if there's an underlying problem like a roof leaking or, active mold, obviously that has to be dealt with. But to improve your space, always start in the bedroom and make it as clean and
sounds like relationship advice.
And take it as you will, whatever works.
Exactly, whatever works.
But yeah, make your bedroom space as unobtrusive and non-stimulating as you can, so that your body has that safe place to heal.
Yeah, because sleep's one of our biggest healers. And
Right.
then
And that's when our body is most vulnerable because we're
Mhm.
not, all our guards are down. We're not protecting ourselves.
I say, yeah, I would agree. Like, don't underestimate the bedroom and also its connection to nature and its connection, as May said before, about the light in the morning, the light during the day, the light in the evening, your circadian rhythms, your biorhythms, your all these layered effects that how close is nature can we feel a breeze? What happens? I have a question which could be way off topic. So I've been doing some studying with different people on the podcast and looking into our biorhythms. And so a woman's biorhythms run in a 28-day cycle, and a man's biorhythms run in a 24-hour cycle. And so one of the things that we're doing is we're working on our briefing documents so that they're done over a month, not over a week or over a day. And in that way, we can again engage through your biorhythms. And I just had a meeting with an amazing guy about customer experience things. And he's going, we can do an AI bot, basically, or agent that will ask you when to fill out these pieces. So it will give you a time frame. So you'll start with one and then it will give you a time frame and then it will ask you again and it will ask you again, ask you again, but new questions, but new ways of forming them and you get to make choices and stuff. And that will actually start to build your wish list and your needs of it. Because we ask a woman to do it. Oh, can you give me that next week? Or can we her biorhythm cycle, she could be anywhere in that biorhythm cycle. Whereas for a man, it's not so mission critical on that. They could do it feeling like this, feeling like that, depending on what time of the day they do it. And so how does that play into when you are being designers and when you are being designers, let's just do it from that. What percentage of your client interaction or drive comes from females versus males? Who's the most aware and what's driving that?
I would say often it's the women. I mean, it's not a huge percentage more, but for a few reasons, the women typically know more about what they need to function in the home.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to like sensitivities, women are more often the ones coming to us with reasons they need a healthy home. And a large part of this is just is physiological. We have more fat cells and that's chemicals attached to fat cells. There's just a different way. I want to be careful and not say women are more sensitive because that's not what I'm saying. But it's typically, if I want to make generalizations, they're more aware of their surroundings and how it affects their physical and mental well-being. And if it's a family, they're more aware of what the children need. And so typically, I'd say we have more contact and more discussions.
Women are driving the conversation. Do you think
more often than not?
Yeah, I think that generally happens with designing a house as well, whether they're aware of this or not. Women will usually be a major driving force in that piece of the conversation early on, definitely. But I wonder if this will be a big shift or if it's showing up as a shift with the work from home. Because I'm male, so I'll say it. I think that men are probably more inherently selfish about their own needs, not necessarily always putting themselves first or anything. Maybe there's more of a robustness as well, and maybe that 24-hour cycle of biorhythm doesn't show up as quick. It doesn't show up. You don't feel it for long as an extended period of time. So it's not 7 days. It's like or 7 or maybe even 14 days as it rolls through your, the cycle of your biorhythms. And then for men, it's like, oh, yeah. I felt like that then, but I'm fine now kind of thing.
Right.
And maybe more of I want to say like a robustness with that. But I'm wondering if the with all the flexi work from home kind of things, whether men will become, because I think the inherent selfishness of men, and I'm not, that sounds wrong, but we'll go, oh, well, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to take care of myself. Yeah, I'll be home soon kind of thing. And I think that's maybe a broken system as well that needs healing. In that, with it, do men, now that they're at home more and working from those environments, are their demands going up? I haven't really sort of crystallized this in my thinking, but it's a question I'm going to start asking to see, because I certainly have seen the compound and the multi-generational family thing growing again. And that's been driven by, I think, building costs and also disconnect, social media disconnect, and then also the fact that the cost of housing is driving these things. And municipal bodies have said you can do more on a smaller block. You don't need a farm to put 3 families on. You can do 3 families on this one block. So I'll be really keen to see, when we have this conversation again in a year or so, is this what are we aware of that's happened? And yes, women may be the driving force of that now, but I bet you when they're talking to biohackers, there's more men in the biohacking camp than there is women.
True. Yeah. And I do feel like it's shifting, and our perspective is probably a little bit skewed because most of the people that come to us is because they want something healthy, so both partners are aware of of the risks and of the reward. So our clientele are probably a little different than just someone who's just designing custom homes and there's no health aspect there.
The trick is to get your clients to be the norm. You know what I mean? Like that everybody's aware. And I think, we always have that thing, happy wife, happy life. If you said healthy wife, happy life, it might make a difference as well. If you reframe that, I always tease my kids, I've got 2 girls, about the liability they are. I'll give them I'll say, they don't build men's hospitals. It's the Royal Brisbane Women's Hospital. You don't go around and say, oh, it's the Royal Men's Hospital. There isn't any. It's women's hospitals. They're more complex. So, you need the health insurance. Like it's, and that's, I'm teasing them. But in that point, it is, the human race could, go on without men, but it won't go on without women kind of thing. And that's all those sensitivities and things that are built into women actually true because they keep the human race going forward. And I think that's a great thing. I've got a couple of last questions, and I know we could talk about 100 more subjects. Yeah. So I just say we should do it again.
Anytime.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And obviously those 5 points and the things around, choosing an architect, the builder in the process, if you can start with them early, and create that team. If you are listening to this podcast and you want to understand that more in depth, just reach out to EcoNest. We'll give you all their stuff so you can reach out. Please reach out to them and just ask them for some resources on it, and they'll tell you to get Paula's Health, that book first, and then they'll give you any other resources. I would love to, first of all, you to share some photos, some project photos, and just talk us through those, and then I'm going to ask you 2 specific questions, one for each of you at the end.
Okay. This is our a little home that we worked on. These are some renderings that May did.
No very kidding. Much May. It's a tatami mat. I love this. I'm doing a house Japanese influenced at the moment, so
yeah. And this was all the owners came to us. He is a woodworker and also very interested in Japanese architecture and woodworking. And so he's done the bulk of the work himself on this home. It started as a workshop for the timber frame. He worked with Paula's husband, Robert, and they did a workshop to raise the timber frame and did light straw clay walls. And the clients call this home a seiki, which is their, and I'm sure I know I didn't say it correctly, but it's Japanese for sanctuary. And what was most important to them was how you move through the home, and how you move through the different spaces. So this was their bedroom and their
So go back to that photo
sorry.
before, the picture before. So the picture before, we're seeing shoji screens. So if you're not on YouTube, come and have a look. Seeing shoji screens, tatami mats.
Oh, yes.
Tatami mats are they've got a prescriptive size. So they actually fill a room in a certain way. And then we've got the simplicity here, and then also the lighting in the ceiling, where, again, very traditional Japanese with we've got timbers, and then we've got timber again, and then we've got actually the light panels. So we've got filtered light in the room.
Right. There's a skylight above this shoji screen on the ceiling. And everything on this side of the house was really designed around these tatami mats in this area of the home.
We've got in the house I'm designing at the moment, we have a tatami mat eating area. So
okay, nice.
So again, it's all designed to the size of a tatami mat.
Sure, yeah. And then this is just a rendering of what some of the built-in bookshelves may be. He's working on these currently, but building, all of the finishes, everything he's doing himself.
Yeah. We have on the one I'm doing, we actually have a separate woodworking building called Mokuzai, which is woodworking building, or something similar in Japanese. And so, it interests me that you're doing it like that as well. Oh, yeah, look at this.
Yeah, there's the exterior. And we're really excited for this one to be finished, and so we can get even more photos.
You know, when you get to design a house, and there's, you design them for other people, and there's some that you fall in love with so much that you want it for yourself. And like I was going to say, it's not your home, but you are going, oh, yeah, these are all things that I would have if I was redesigning my own home now, because the evolution process of design. It's
I fall in love with something new every week, and a lot of times for me it's materials or finishes. I have a lot of clients who signed on for consulting for the building of their house, but then they stay in touch, and they will call and say, I need a new sofa, can you look at these? And I see these and I think, oh, I have to have that. I need that bed.
Do you have the same?
Can't live without it.
May, do you have the same issues?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like the architect who designs their own home, it's like a moment in time, and it's all the knowledge up to this point. But then that it's only just a moment in time as the journey keeps going. This is another reason I reckon modular's got such a long thread to it. And the other thing is people say to me, if you could live anywhere, where would you choose to live? And I go, everywhere.
Right.
There are places that I love, and there's prescriptions that I like and that I would choose, but or what house would you have here? Well, it'd be completely different from the house I'd have there. This one and this one, because they're site specific. So
I always say that I can live anywhere, and I chose to live where I'm living.
Yeah.
So I love Southern Oregon. It's perfect for me.
Yeah, and May lives in mid Oregon, and it's perfect for her climatically.
Yeah.
Both of them work really well.
I lived in Eugene also for about 16 years, and I really loved it. The move to Southern Oregon was not by choice. I shouldn't say I choose to live here, but now that I'm here, now I choose to. Yeah.
So May's in Eugene, and Eugene, I was thinking, I've been going, why do I know it? Why do I know it? Why do I know it? And it's from Western Stories.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a
Western. From your Louis L'Amour's?
Probably, or something beyond that.
Interesting.
That anchored me into the great West of America. Yeah, it anchored my whole kind of life perspectives around so many things that were from the Louis Moore stories. Yeah, which is pretty interesting. Yeah, and then environmentally, both of your climates are different where you both live. And yeah, I mean, Paula lives near you, Andrea, and so you have these different things. But Paula's, Santa Fe, like she's New Mexican desert, and then so you go. This also brings so much width to your understanding of climatic stuff and experiencing those things. And I know, May, you lived down there when you moved up there, back up to Eugene. And one of the things I loved about, and we had this discussion, but I'm going to divulge a bit of it, was how that brought you back to family, and it brought you back to your family community, and how you're able to be there for your family as well. And again, this forms part of your view of architecture, of how community, family, and all these pieces come together. And I think that the people behind things is most fascinating, and then what informs their passions and their drive and their pieces with it. So yes, if people are looking for this resource that you can offer, my comment would be everybody should be looking at it and considering it before they put anything together for a home of any kind. If they have not at least read Prescriptions for a Healthy House, and it's not like a novel, this is like a workbook. If you haven't read that, I know yours is right there in the picture. I spotted that. If they haven't read that, please start there, and then just make your considerations from there, and then reach out, look for a building biologist, and do that as well. And if you can't find somebody in your local area, because I think like in Australia there's less than a dozen building biologists, so when you start doing things like that, go, okay, well, I'll just reach out to EcoNest and start my conversation there. Is a really big thing. So now I've got a final question for you both. It's the same question, but you can choose who answers it first, or I might choose who answers it first. The question is going to be, and you're answering it from yourself for yourself. What is the most favorite space in your own home, and why? And I'm going to ask you to put it into one emotional word. I saw May take a big breath then of consideration. Did you want to go first, May?
Well, certainly. There's many, because I focus on this every day. And so my home is where my heart is, and there's many spaces that I enjoy. So choosing the top one is like a little bit of a challenge.
Come on then.
I'd have to say the backyard, completely outdoor space. We're at the back of the property is a river, and just being out there in nature, feet on the ground, trees in the breeze, just really wonderful. I know that takes it a little bit away from architecture, but it's always directly connected, of course.
If you had to have one emotional word that sums it up for how it makes you feel, what would that emotional word be?
That would be calmness.
When do you go most often to this space? What time of day? Every day, she says.
Every day, evening, afternoon. I'm walking my little bull terrier, and we go to this space together.
Wow, that'd be probably why you're so centered. If you were to design a new home for yourself, how would you ensure that you had those elements that brought you calm?
One, I would bring the home closer to the river and bring it closer to that natural element. Two, I would design the outdoor space more. I would further that. I'd provide coverage for it. Here in Oregon, we get a ton of rain, and I love being outdoors when it rains. It's another level of calm spaces. Aligns with Zen and meditation and all of that calmness that then we could create large openings and bring into directly into our home. Of course, not bringing the rain in, but bringing in the calmness.
Yeah.
Breeze.
Yeah. And the breeze.
Yeah, breeze. Well, just about always with rain, we end up with breeze, don't we? As we get a temperature variation, we start shifting air with it at the same time. When May is in her calm space, who does that allow her to be?
What was that?
Who does it allow you to be when you're in your calm space? When you go to those spaces, what does it change for you?
It definitely takes away a lot of the stresses that we we all have day to day. We all endure, we all come into contact with. And so that's really a relaxing space that I think everyone can really benefit from having that.
So it certainly allows you to do that.
Yeah.
Cool. That's fabulous. I love it. There's so much insight into your human behavior with it and how that sets you up for your life, and then that obviously has a wonderful ripple effect. For the people directly around you, but then go beyond the people directly around you, the people you design for. You get that insight, and you get their insights, and you're able to meld those together. Okay, Andrea, here we go. Favorite?
Yeah, mine is also kind of an outdoor place.
Well, yeah, nobody wants to be inside.
Mine is my front porch, not because it puts me at the front of the house, but because the way we designed it, and we didn't build this house. It was a fixer-upper that we rescued. But it's covered, and I have a giant swing couch, I guess. It was a couch that was broken, and we sawed it in half and put it on chains so you can swing on this just luxurious couch.
I need to see a photo of that. We don't all need to see it, but I need to see a photo of that.
I'll see if I can get one.
Just text it to me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's where I can relax because I don't have to clean something or cook something or work, or as soon as I step out that door, that is only for sitting and relaxing. And I find I have some of my best reading time out there, my most creative time, I think, because it's taking away some of the other things that I focus on when I'm inside the house. Because it's covered, it's our favorite place to watch a thunderstorm. Just last week, we sat out there. We all had dinner out on the front porch so we could watch a thunderstorm. The dogs like it. It's a great place for conversation.
So one word?
I'm going to say joyful. It's kind of where we gather with friends. When my adult kids are home and have friends over, we schedule who gets to have the the porch when. And otherwise, we're all out there and just kind of relaxing and having some great conversation.
I love that. So who does it allow you to be? Well, I think you told us. It gives you the creative piece, and it also gives you community, and it connects you with nature.
Yeah. When I was studying for the architecture exams, that was my favorite place to study because I could shut everything else out and go take all my books and flashcards and sit in the chair and focus on only that. I feel like I can focus better out there.
Yeah, okay. I find this always fascinating to start digging into what part of a home means what, and what it needs, and in the design phase of designing for people, identifying those things that belong so much to the psyche of who they are, and making sure that we maintain those in a new build or create them in a new build, is so critical to the outcomes of those people's health. And then we come all the way back round to, so is the building biology, so is the building science of how these things go together. And when we can do that, our goal can be so clearly focused around the emotions of the human that live in the home and outside of the home. And both your bloody cases, of course, architects. I find fascinating that probably 60% of people list a place outside of the house. That I find absolutely fascinating. I go, that means our housing's failing. Doesn't mean it's failing. It means that we need to be so more aware of it. And, a large part of the people I talk to are architects. But I do this with, if you're a business coach, I'll ask you the same question. I ask it of my clients, where are these spaces? And then we do this on a room by room basis. Yeah. So what does this room bring to you? Before, when we were talking about, that bedroom part, start with the bedroom Okay, and then if there's an ensuite, what does the ensuite mean? How does that heal, refresh, renew, build for you? What does it need to connect with? Like I love to put, you call them Gelios windows, I call them louver windows. I love to put banks of those in my showers so that you can feel natural breeze on you in the shower.
Yeah.
And it's an open window, like it's an open window. And the number of my clients, especially in this climate, that say, I want to be able to shower outside.
Yeah, we get a few of those too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And these things of understanding humans' natural behavior as opposed to the behavior that they've become conditioned to get them back to natural behavior.
Right.
It is very, very, very rare that it's not to be closer to nature.
Yeah. And really, designing and building your outdoor spaces, that's your biggest bang for the buck.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot less expensive to design and build outdoor spaces. So they should be really integral to your indoor spaces and complement them.
We have a thing here that an ADU can be, depending on the size of the block, but an additional dwelling unit can be somewhere between 60 and say 90 square meters. So 60 times 9 equals, so 540 square feet, something around that size.
Sure.
But that is the measure to the outside walls of the interior space and doesn't include staircases or those pieces. But I can put 500 square feet of covered outdoor space around that, under roof, something underfoot. I can do that. And so I can keep going. I can do 1,000 square feet. I can do 2,000 square feet of covered space around it. And so then you start looking again. I go back to modular. How do you hold this built unit, not necessarily too small, if each climate is different, but how do you hold this built unit to something that's manageable? And then, as you just made the point, Andrea, whoa, hold on, we can put all this, and that is our most economic transformation piece of the home. And we get to live closer with nature.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you.
I feel all filled up and full of learnings. I hope the audience feels the same. And please, please, please do just reach out directly to EcoNest. And if not, reach out to me and I will put you in touch with EcoNest. Or if you're in Australia, I would put you in touch with probably Zara Dakota as a first point of call. But she does a lot of masterclasses and stuff for builders, for people actually creating the homes. And architects and things rather than for the public. So she's sort of like at that educational piece there. And you guys are in both those spaces so beautifully and will create the home for the person as well. It was wonderful. I feel, I don't know, strangely calm and hugely excited all in one.
Good. That's the best.
So thank you so much for making the time.
You're welcome. Thank you for
tuning into our conversation. I hope it left you both informed and inspired. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen. And please don't hesitate to share your design thoughts with me. It's always a joy to hear from you. If you're like me and crave a deeper dive into design thinking, coupled with a love for travel and adventure, consider one of my architectural adventures. Join me and some of my wonderful design friends and embark on a journey of a lifetime. Apply for an unforgettable design experience at adrianramsey.com. With our clients spanning the globe, I firmly believe behind every great project are great people. If you're a great person and seeking to turn your dream into a reality, I'd be honored to design your home with you. Why not join the ranks of our exceptional clients and let's make your heart sing. Reach out to me at studio@ardesignhouse.com. That's studio@ardesignhouse.com. And let's get a conversation going and make your heart sing.